Hey everyone, welcome to Handy at the Shandy, a Las Vegas podcast. I am Adam the Fraud, joined by Table James Games and Boring Jack. This is episode 25, hour 2, and we're going to go into some listener questions and feedback. And we're just going to not be like No Doubt. We're going to jump in, no intermission, and just go for it. First bit of feedback here is from Austin Lemaster. I hope I'm saying your name right, Austin. I apologize if I'm not. And that goes for any name we mentioned on this show ever. So that's a blanket statement.
Refer back to episode 25, hour 2 for our...
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It says, one of my favorite Easter eggs in Vegas is that in all of New York's decks of cards on table games, hearts are replaced with apples.
That's
I did not
amazing.
know that.
I love that. I didn't know that
It's
either.
crazy I didn't know that. I'm so glad that someone wrote in with an Easter egg. Also says that Hard Rock stylizes their face cards here in Florida, which I'm hoping make it to Vegas when that opens for the same type of thing. I think they will. I think that's kind of an easy thing to do, but that's awesome. So that's cool to hear. Kind of makes me want to go to New York now and play some table games, or just get one of those old, like go to the dollar store and search for a New York deck of cards.
Yeah, I was not aware of that, and I went to New York, which, if you have not listened to the 7-hour recap that I just did of my trip report, you can go back to quote unquote hour 1.
The bar top video poker didn't have apples for hearts. Is what
Did not. They should. That'd be great.
James's sad trip report.
They can't afford to license it from Eddie Money or whomever.
Matthew Mitchell wrote in, my wife and I started going out regularly to Vegas around 2010. What is something that you used to do all the time in your early Vegas years that you never do now? For example, we used to always stay at the Golden Nugget and enjoy their pool/table games. Haven't stayed since before COVID. We also used to always play video poker at the Flamingo and never do now. What are some things that you used to do, Jack, early on in Vegas that you don't do as much anymore?
I think the biggest one for me is seeking out new to me cocktail bars, where now I do try to seek out new video poker bars that have cocktails and try to report and figure out for myself what the cocktail program is like there and what they can comp and that kind of stuff. But I'm kind of over trying to find where the best places to get drinks are. I think there's a lot more of them now. It used to be like, you have to find like the laundry room or downtown, the Oak and Ivy at downtown Container Park or downtown cocktail room or stuff like that. But good cocktail bars have gotten a lot more ubiquitous these days, I think, which is good. But it also makes it so that ubiquity makes it so that we can go to more random video poker bars and get much better cocktails than you used to be able to get. So for me, I'd say the biggest thing for me is that I stick to the gaming bars more.
Yeah, for me, it's actually play actual poker, which is something that was very much a highlight of early trips. And I started going in like as a 21-year-old in like 2008-ish, around there. I think one of my favorite memories was Bill's Gambling Hall, formerly, Barbary Coast, then Bill's, and then Cromwell, now Vanderpump. Holy crap, what a timeline that's gone through. But they used to have a poker table like right near the entrance. You get like this nice fresh air. The doors were always open, and it was 50-cent blinds, and it was a no limit game. Wow. And I think one trip I had like 7 or 8 friends. We were all there, just basically us and some random guy all playing. We're just taking
each other under the table to take that guy's money.
Right. But I just remember like it was just so much fun, like low rolling. And that's when like every poker room was open. So I'd play at the Luxor a lot. Used to play at MGM Grand. The nice thing about that was at the time we would go and play, and we would plan it. We would go and play at like 2-3 in the morning when the club was getting out, because the poker room was kind of adjacent to the big nightclub. So all the very confident drunk people would come out of the club, want to play some poker because it was really popular at the time, and they didn't know what they were doing. And so it was almost like our ATM. And I'm not a good player, but it was like if you knew basic, hands and kind of development, it was easy money at that time.
Man, that's what I was going to say. I was going to say that I used to play a lot of live poker back when I first started going. And I think it's just because, like you said, in that 2008, 2012 timeline, very, very popular. I'll also say I used to play so much blackjack. Like I would just sit at a blackjack table for like 6 hours and just like drink and play, and I don't do that like at all anymore. And I don't think I see myself doing it anytime soon.
That definitely used to be what I would play between like poker sessions, or if I was waiting for poker. I wouldn't be at the video poker bar. I'd be at a blackjack table.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if like price increases for like table game minimums has impacted my willingness to just like go out and like, oh, play blackjack or any other random game. Where it's like when it was like I was younger and it was like $5, it's like going and sitting out at a blackjack table playing $5 a hand was like, yeah, I can just go do that for an hour or so. And if I lose, I lose, and that's fine. But like, man, if it's $25, it's like that kind of session's going to cost me, and I'd rather just use that money to play Ultimate X. It's not kind of chump change anymore. I don't know if that makes sense.
So I was actually thinking about this on my most recent trip because I did play a little bit of blackjack with Michael. And I actually think it's because I want the high of having a chance of winning a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And with blackjack, I'm probably not going to play any of the side bets. And so,
and you also don't play like a progression system that gets you up to like one big bet at some point,
right? And so maybe that's what I should do. Maybe I should think about a progression system where I do get up to a big bet. Whereas, if I'm playing a decent video poker game where the return to player is very similar to, let's say, what a blackjack table would be, then I have that chance of 4,000 or 36,000 or whatever. Even though I'm not going to hit it, but you could.
Yeah, that's the thing I always say about Ultimate X. It's kind of its own progression system. Like it parlays your wins for you onto the next hand. So
yeah.
Or you can just hope that Vinny Chen's comes out of some fog and just says, "Hey, let's take this to the next level."
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm trying to convince him to come out when I'm there again. So I bet you I can if I say, "Hey, we're going to be playing some $50 presses."
I don't think it's going to take much to get Vinny Chen's out to Vegas.
This next question is from Chris Brown. He says, question regarding comp thought process. It sounds like you all keep a few different rewards programs in rotation for your Vegas comps. Have you ever gone through a period trying to dedicate all your play towards one program? Or is the freedom to play at multiple properties the goal? I'm a Win fanboy and always focus my play on the property, which does make me low roll at other properties when I meet up with friends. But the amount of free play, resort credit, and transportation perks I get makes me reluctant to try other waters. Curious as to your thoughts. I would say that there's kind of a difference between spreading your play out between different properties and programs on the same trip versus throughout the year. Because doing the former will hurt your offers, whereas doing the latter will hurt like your tier status that you would accumulate throughout the course of the entire tier year. Mm-hmm. And so I think if whatever player you are, as long as you make kind of n number of trips to Vegas in a year, and maybe even a little longer time frame than that, and you're only going through n different players clubs, you can maintain a healthy relationship with all those different players clubs. Like Players Club A knows that when you come to town, you lose on average 2,500 or something like that. And so they have you as like a 2,500 Theo player. But the casino down the road could also have you as a 2,500 Theo player because they only see you on the trips that they see you, right? And so it's really about whether you're trying to accumulate one of those big year-end bonuses or if you're happy to just spend an entire trip away from the win, which I can see why you might be reticent to, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I'm pretty well consolidated at MGM in terms of I have my kind of yearly goal with MGM that I want to hit, which is just maintaining my status and maintaining the comps that I'm getting. But that also allows, even though I'm only going out maybe 4 times a year, it allows me to say, okay, like for instance, I'm going to go on a trip with my wife later in the fall. I think we're going to stay maybe Venetian Palazzo. All right, that's just going to be the trip where that's where I gamble, and MGM most likely won't even know that I'm in town. And I think by that point, I'll have still maintained the goal that I want at MGM without affecting my offers in that way.
Yeah, I definitely keep a couple of places on rotation, but I will make sure that if I'm staying somewhere, that's where I'm putting the vast majority of my play. And maybe on certain trips, I will split up 2 nights here, 2 nights there, but I'll make sure when I am at a specific hotel staying there, I will play most of my time there. And like at this time, I did go over, like I said, I went over to win after I had already checked out and played a little bit of craps. And they asked me for my player's card. And I said, oh, no, I'm only going to play here for a little bit. So I didn't put my player's card down. So I echo what Jack says. I think you can have a couple different places unless you are trying to get up to that level, right? If you're talking about win, right? If you're like, I need to focus all of my play at win and I get black status, then like that is probably worth it when you're getting all your benefits from that.
And then the thing you would have to think about then is like, how do I engineer a trip where I'm not beholden to win so I can use that trip to try other casinos, right? And, sometimes you do it via booking on a credit card offer. Sometimes you shack up with James at the Palazzo and
get him to book you a room at Win. Yeah,
exactly.
Thank you, Chris, for that. Derek Lyon says, I constantly find myself avoiding MGM hotels when I have to come back to Vegas because I'm concerned that between the different things that I have to do in town, I won't adequately fulfill my comp relationship correctly, and I'll damage my offers. Those offers that I'm mostly not using because I'm concerned about the comp relationship. This seems like an illness on my part. I mean, yeah, we're all a little sick. Do you have a more healthy way of looking at this when it comes to deciding when to and when not to stay somewhere you have a comp relationship with, which is very much related to a little bit of what Chris was getting at too?
Yeah, so my answer for this is generally, I think you just have to worry about it less. Like you're saying, if you knew there was a big trip coming up, you're like, okay, this trip might be a low play trip, but the next one is going to be the big one they want to see out of me. Then I could see kind of trying to make that distinction between, okay, I won't stay at MGM this trip so that on this next big trip, I keep up appearances. But if this happens to you kind of over and over again, like you're saying, where you continually defer using the offer to the next trip because you think, maybe this isn't the right one to use that offer. No, just book it. And if it goes down a little bit, that's fine.
And I think we've seen with James, and we keep bringing this up, and his relationship with Wynn is that depending on how things are going, in macro, I don't want to bring up economics because James is going to get a semi.
Bricked up.
How the macro environment's going, and then even the micro as well, in terms of the individual program, I think you might be surprised at how much of a leash they'll give you in terms of burning some offers. So I would not be too shy about burning an offer here or there, because I think if you're consistent with things, as kind of Jack was saying, your offers will probably kind of stay in that kind of area that you're at, unless you seriously lowball them a couple times in a row. But I think they're probably more forgiving sometimes than we think. And it is an illness. You're absolutely right.
I think it's a little easier when you're talking like MGM or Caesars, since they have such a wide variety of properties where, like, yes, maybe you go in, you don't play as heavy as you maybe normally do or think you should have. And so perhaps your ABCs, your Aria, Bellagio, Cosmo offers are not there anymore. But like, I just stayed at Luxor. It was fine. They're probably still going to give you Luxor. They're paying people to go there.
I was like, did James forget what ADT is? But no.
No, ABC.
Season 1, 2, 3s.
Yeah, no, it was a good explanation.
And sometimes it's hard to tell. I mean, I've legitimately had trips where I gave what I thought was really good play, and my offers, did not get considerably better at all, at least exponentially so how I thought they would, or how I thought they would scale. And then I've had trips where, I didn't gamble much and my offers improved. So it's really hard to tell sometimes too, but like what's going to happen. It's very black boxy. There's only so much that we can do. So, take what they'll give you and don't overthink it too much.
And give nothing back.
Yeah, so that's James at Wynn.
Yeah. Thank you, Derek. On Twitter, I got mentioned by Sean King at Seamus0135. He says, "Sirs, thank you for the respect. Mm-hmm. That's the respect we expect. Have you ever thought or discussed the payouts in video poker not really being enough to get ahead? I understand gambling is a losing endeavor. However, unless you are betting $25 to $100 a rattle, You can't have a huge jackpot like in slats. Like
Jeez.
you can't have a huge jackpot like in slots. So it can feel like just a very slow death.
I think this is actually a really good question, because when you're kind of conditioned to kind of getting nothing, and then a big hit that changes your whole trip, or maybe you don't get the big hit that changes your whole trip and you just get a bunch of nothings, but that's kind of what you're used to.
A bunch of nothings is
Playing
this podcast.
Playing lower variance games can feel kind of intimidating in that regard, where you're like, well, if I lose $500, there's no payout on this game that gets me ahead. Like, let's say you're playing like Dime video poker or something where the max payout is $400 for the royal. You're just like, I'm actually just out of it. But I think the thing to think about is, A, you will not get nearly as buried as deep at games where you get slower, more incremental returns hand to hand than on a slot machine. Like, a slot machine is much more like you get buried in a big hole and then there is a way out of it. In video poker, sometimes you just don't get buried. You just like hang out, and then you're always kind of within that range. And that doesn't really happen at a lot of slots where you just kind of tread water.
Well, it's like that bonus hunting, right? It's like, okay, well, I'm down, but like if the bonus hits, then I'm likely gonna, pull myself back up, which would be good. But yeah, I get that. It can feel like a grind, I think, to some people playing these games. We were just talking about it with blackjack, James, with you as well, where it's like, yeah, I had fun, but it was just, you didn't have that chance to hit something big, so it was just kind of not boring, but just
And I
don't know what I'm trying to say.
I think the other thing to think about is that, like, yeah, sure, on any one hand, you might not be able to get some massive payout, but the like more mediocre payouts do happen more often. And as a video poker player, you will be able to recount sessions where you're like, I just couldn't stop hitting quads. I got four of a kind this, and then I got four of a kind that, and then I got four aces, and then I got a few dealt full house. It's just like, you can string together wins in a way that adds up to something big. And that happens more often at lower variance games than it does at higher variance ones, right? And it's not a great explanation, but if you've played enough video poker, you remember the sessions where you hit a bunch of small things and won a ton, just as much as you do those ones where you just hit one massive hit.
Yeah, and I replied to Sean on Twitter, and I said, I 100% hear that, which is probably the reason why I have leaned heavily into Ultimate X, because there is that possibility of a huge payout, or going to dollars with double. So you're adding that variance pretty big. But, on a trip for a weekend, I'm going to hit four aces. Well, not going to, but odds are I'm going to hit four aces with a kicker at some point over a 4-day trip, and I'll get that hand pay. And it's like, yeah, I hit a jackpot. Yeah, I might have been down $4,000 before I hit it, but, I dug out a little bit.
Well, that's what I told Duffy when I tried to get him into Ultimate X about a year ago, and now he's fully converted. I was like, it's the video poker game that has the same good return to player that most video poker games have, but it pays like a slot machine. It pays like a slot machine in the sense that you can lose a lot really fast, but it also pays like a slot machine in that you're never out of it. You can always just hit something insanely big compared to how much you're down.
Yeah. Thank you, Sean.
Next up, we've got a couple from Bogan on Twitter, and he says this is in response to kind of our discussion about how we used our free play. And I was not the nicest to some slot players who talk about using their free play on video poker, but he has a very good rationale for it. He says, I'm primarily a slot player and almost exclusively play my free play on video poker. The main reason is that you generally don't earn any comps on free play. I want to use my free play on the lowest variance games and convert as much as my free play into cash as possible. There is an argument to be made that if I'm only playing slots that are positive EV, then why would I play the negative EV video poker with my free play? He says, I think the issue is that I am never 100% sure that what I'm playing is positive, but I do know exactly what I'm giving up in video poker. And the comps he receives playing slots make up for the times when he's playing a slot that's not in as positive as a state as he thinks it is. So if you're doing some AP stuff, there are some reasons you might want to just convert your free play into cash and then go use it to do your evil AP things.
Evil. I think it's not even if you're doing AP. I can see the argument now, which we didn't consider last week, that when you're using your free play, you're not gaining comps, right? And so if you're mainly a slot player, you want to convert that free play into as much cash as possible. So that way you can then use that cash to get those comps and that tier status. And
Right,
you're going
that's
to
a
look
good
better.
point. Like, imagine if video poker was just a machine that handed you back exactly 99% of what you put into it for whatever reason. Then what James is saying, would make perfect sense.
It's the most logical thing to do.
If that's what you're looking for, right? And especially if you're trying to get the casino to view you more as a slot player, right? Like, hey, I'm going to take this money and put it in the slots.
The next one, also from Bogan, again in response to what we were talking about with slot machines we would play on the last episode. He says, I think the whole Vegas Matt argument about how random a slot machine feels is complete hogwash. I agree that some machines do a better job than others making it feel random, but it doesn't matter how the symbols show up on the reels. The game is set to a certain payback. And that's where I kind of disagree, because I think the payouts you receive are based on what shows up on the reels. At least that's the way it works in your head causally, right? I guess the way I would say is that because the fun of gambling is in the anticipation, I want to feel like I'm live for it when I'm anticipating a hit coming up. And I think a really good example of this, that's a more basic example of what we're talking about when we're saying, like, how random does the machine feel, is old 3-reel slot machines. Because very often you can imagine a 9-line game on a 3-reel slot machine. So there's 3 lines across, there's 2 big diagonals, and then there's 4 like V's or chevrons, depending on how you look at them. And on those old 3-reel slots, unlike on video reels, there are blank spaces on the reels. So every reel will either land with a symbol at the top and the bottom and a blank space in the middle, or the reel will land with a symbol in the middle and blank spaces on the top or bottom. And so very often in these games, you notice that the reels do not spin independently of one another. And the most obvious way you see that is when you get like a wild symbol on the first 2 reels. And no matter where they are on the first 2 reels, very often there is a spot where you could get a pay on that 3rd reel. And it never comes. You would be able to bet with like 1 in 6, 1 in 8 certainty that it will not be the pay. And that was not your belief about that 3rd reel going into it. So if you were about to spin the machine, I would say, hey, what are the chances that the symbol comes in the middle versus the top and the bottom? You'd say it's probably about 50-50. The reels just kind of do whatever. But after it goes wild in the middle, sure as shit, you know the symbols are coming top and bottom to avoid those pay lines and not going right in the middle. And that will happen. Sometimes you will hit it. You'll get 3 in a row right in the middle. And so you're anticipating something and it does happen. But from my experience watching these 3-reel slots, that only happens like 1 in 6, 1 in 7, 1 in 8 times. When before the reel started spinning, you would have said it was about 1 in 2. And so you're actually gaining information about what is going to happen on the 3rd reel as they progress. And I find that very disheartening as someone who enjoys the anticipation of gambling. The video slots make this a lot more complicated to try and tell. But as a player, you kind of get the idea of like, am I learning what's going to come on these later reels as the first one lands? Or am I still completely in the dark and it could just as easily be the thing I want as the things that don't help me? And that's my best explanation of it. I know it's kind of confusing, but...
No, I think you're both right here. Bogan is saying, at least the way that I'm reading it, is like the game is set to a certain payback, so it doesn't really matter how the symbols show up. And I believe if you're going into playing slots that way of saying like, this is what the payout's going to be, and I'm not necessarily playing the slot for the enjoyment of the anticipation or the quote unquote fun of whatever the game is.
The screen could be off and you could have the same experience playing the slot. Like your money still can go up and down and you can just close your eyes, right?
Right.
That's a good point from Bogan. It sounds like I'm making fun of it, but that's true.
No, yeah, it's you just do pull tabs, right? It's fine. But I'm with you, Jack, that if I'm playing a slot where I do want to get that enjoyment from the anticipation, which, as we talked about last episode, it's not always. Sometimes I'm just pressing until I get the bonus.
But then you sit and look through the bonus then, right, at least? Or do you just fast spin through that? Oh, my God.
Most of the time. You're skipping the bonus?
Most of the time. I'm watching the whole bonus. This depends what I got to do. Do I got to get to the No Doubt concert or not?
Do what?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
I don't listen to this show, and I don't really remember this conversation from the last episode, so I'm just going to refrain from speaking. But I like what was presented here.
Thank you, Adam.
Yeah, I do. Thank you, Bogan, for replying and interacting. Listening to an episode and being like, I don't agree with this shit the three of you are saying. I'm going to say something.
No.
That's
You
awesome.
can, if you disagree, you can keep it to yourself. That's not necessarily true for Bogan. Everyone likes Bogan, but the rest of you listening out there, this is a warning.
That's a warning.
Well, that's it for pretty much all of the feedback and questions, which we really do appreciate.
We do have a couple more. There are a couple more people that had questions.
Yes.
I don't want them to think they're being ignored, but we will sneak them.
But they're related to they're related to the next segment. But I do want to say thank you because we had a quick turnaround time. We're on an odd schedule for the recording sessions that we're kind of in the middle of, and so to get this much feedback in basically a week was a very nice surprise. But Jack, why don't you get into your poker trip preview? And I understand have you done this every year for like the last several years now?
Yeah, basically. I think I've personally played in the poker tournament about 8 times in the last like 10 or 11 years. So this will be like my 9th time playing this tournament, but I've been out there for the World Series a larger number of times than that, even if I haven't necessarily participated. This trip is going to be a 5-night stay. And part of the reason I'm doing such a long one is because in the past, these days can just get eaten up by the poker playing itself. The first day that you play is 11 hours of poker if you make it all the way through. And then it's about 10 the next day. And you're not very likely to make it all the way through that. But I did, and it ruined my trip because I was like, oh my God, I was not planning on playing 20 plus hours of poker over 2 days and still having to come back for the third day. So I've padded things out so that even if I do really well in the poker tournament, I have time to do all the other stuff I want to do.
Well, and we kind of talked like early on about what's something we used to like to do, and like live poker was something I know all three of us did at one point, but it does eat into your day, even like a small tournament that's not part of the World Series, which is why I've gravitated away from it.
Right, yeah. If you're just doing like a daily tournament and you end up getting like near the money or in the money, you could be chewing up 4, 5, 6 hours, and maybe you could chew up that amount of time with nothing to show for it, and you're just kind of like, all right, well, there it goes.
At least I got to sit with some weird people.
Yeah, exactly. One thing I'll talk about quickly before we get into some of the more poker-related stuff is some dinners we've got planned. When we get on Saturday, we're doing one of the old favorites, Jaleo, at the Cosmopolitan, the Jose Andres tapas restaurant there. It was easy to get into at a time we wanted to get at, and so I booked it. And it's of my favorite restaurants in Vegas. It's the one I have not been to as recently. You know, we did Best Friends somewhat recently, stuff like that. So that's why we're doing Jaleo. The new favorite, no walk-up seating at the bar, Gymkhana. We've got a reservation.
Suck it, James.
A nice early 5:15 on Sunday at Gymkhana. And I could not be more looking forward to that. It was so good last time. And now we kind of know what the portions and stuff look like. I think we can order even a little more and get out of there even cheaper because we won't get suckered in by the $30 cocktails this time, perhaps. Dinner on Monday is not going to be nearly as impressive because we're going to be in the poker tournament. And as I'll get to in a bit, the poker tournament on the first day does not come with a dinner break. So you only get 15 minutes to eat. So the goal is that hopefully later into the day, whoever busts out of the tournament first goes and gets sandwiches for whoever's still in. And so a dinner on Monday, the plan is like Earl of Sandwich takeout.
It's not bad.
So whoever busts early has to pay for them as well?
No, I don't think we've ever actually made that be the rule. But
that should be the rule.
I think you should. It definitely should be the rule.
I mean,
busting early should not be rewarded.
Insult to Tuesday, we don't have anything specifically booked yet, but I'm going to try, if we're all out of the tournament, to maybe get people over to the Durango Casino because I've never seen it. And then not too far from there, maybe like a 5-mile drive, is that Other Mama sushi spot that I mentioned on our discussion of favorite non-casino related restaurants. And I haven't been there in many years. I know my friends have never been there. And so that could be a good thing to try on Tuesday. And then Wednesday, it's just me and Ryan in town at this point, and we're going to Maroon, which is that new like Caribbean style like jerk steakhouse at Sahara. that is,
Oh.
it's done
Oh,
by
yeah.
some sort of renowned chef. I don't know who it is. I both didn't know who it was when they announced it and still don't know who it is, but it's supposed to be pretty good. This is a pretty highly anticipated restaurant opening.
It's not Guy Fieri, is it?
Couple jerks going to get some jerk.
Leave it in.
A classic tradition of this poker trip is what we've started calling the Vidara Invitational, which is where a bunch of us jerks sit in my suite at the Vidara and play really low limit weirdo poker and drink whiskey or brandy or whatever we bring. So I'm going to bring a couple nice bottles of liquor.
My lord.
I had not thought about that, but now I'm thinking about it.
I apologize to everybody else at the Vidar Invitational. So what kind of games at the Vidar Invitational? I mean, everyone's got like Black Mariah.
Yeah,
are we playing those kind of games?
Sometimes we play more basic poker games like Omaha 8 or better or Deuce to 7 triple draw, but we're trying to incorporate some weirder ones this year. And we have a bit of an abbreviated cast and crew for this, so it's not obvious how it's going to work. But one that I thought sounded really fun is one called Second Best Hold'em, where at Showdown, whoever has the second best hand wins the pot.
Yes,
and so if there's only 2 people left, it's actually just effectively turns into low ball. Whoever has the worst hand of the 2 wins the pot. But if there's more than 2 people in, it becomes a really weird circus of trying to like thread the needle. And I think that could be really fun. But then there's another one I was really interested in, and this is going to make sense. It barely makes sense to me, so I know it's going to make sense to like a very small portion of our audience. But there's a game called Archie, which is a high-low split double qualifier triple draw game. And the double qualifier
you just strung words together
is used to imply that you cannot easily have both a high hand and a low hand because they both have to qualify. So when I said earlier Omaha 8 or better, what that usually means is the high hand splits the pot with the low hand, but the low hand has to at least be an 8 low or lower. Like you couldn't have 9, 7, 5, 4, 3 and qualify for the low. And so that makes it harder for someone to be both good at the low and the high. This Archie game we want to try is like that, but on steroids, where like you are locked into basically going for the high or the low, but no one knows which one you're going for over the course of the 3 rounds of draws in this draw poker game. So we're going to try some fun stuff.
So wait, Archie is basically what again?
It's 5-card, triple draw, high-low split, double qualifier.
Okay. That's what it sounds like when my wife tells me what she wants from Starbucks. Like, I have no idea. I just try to, like, repeat it.
You just give her the app and be like, please just type it in yourself.
I just give him a speakerphone. Like, just tell her what you just told me.
Yeah. I was very excited to be invited last year to the Vidara Invitational. So I think that was the only thing I won at during my trip last year when I went with you guys.
That's the thing is, so what we do, we play $1, $2 limit. So the blinds are 50 cents a dollar. And it's like no one has ever even lost $100 in this game at any point. And so when we have a friend, like our friend Trevor's coming with us, he's the guy that on like the very first episode of this podcast, shout out to our original listeners, he's the guy that hit the royal flush like on his last bit of free play on his like first ever time playing video poker. He doesn't really know how to play poker. And we're like, listen, you can't even like lose $100 and it's going to be fine. Like it's we're really just playing for the drinks and the camaraderie. And so hopefully, James can vouch for those haven't been present.
How many people are going out this time?
For the tournament, there's only going to be 3 of us playing, myself, Ben, and Ryan, both of which friends of the pod. But on Sunday for the dinner and the preceding, we're going to try to do the poker before dinner while we have everyone in town. There's going to be 5 of us there. So
Nice.
Okay, cool.
One other thing I wanted to talk about a bit is playing cash games at the Bellagio. And I mentioned the Bellagio specifically because A, it's proximate to where we like to stay, but also it's the only room in town that really spreads limit games at just regular fixed limit hold'em. Like sure, some of these other rooms will run like a mix game, and mix games are traditionally limit. And so that kind of qualifies. But for the most part, if you just want to play regular fixed limit hold'em, Bellagio is the only place in Vegas to do it at normal stakes. But I don't really like playing at the Bellagio and haven't done it in a while. I think if you're more comfortable doing it, you can kind of, the ways to like grease some palms and get yourself in. But that poker room is very run for the purpose of for the benefit of their regular customers. They kind of bend over backwards to do things for the regulars there. And their regulars are all miserable. Like anyone who's like lives in Vegas is a regular at the limit games at the Bellagio poker room is just both a terrible person and like unpleasant to be around. And this is like not even a joke. Like some of the most despicable characters you find at the poker tables there for whatever reason.
Any casino, like any town that has a limit game going that's regular, they're the most miserable people that you're going to find at the casino.
Which is weird because like that's not true at the local card room here in Minneapolis. Like
that's just because you're one of those people and you don't want to admit it.
Yeah.
No, it's actually a pretty good time. And so that's why I was so shocked at how like I'm going to Vegas to play poker and like the room is worse run by people who are worse at their jobs and bend over backwards to service like worse regulars that are mean. And I'm just like, why is this like, why would this be where I'd go to play poker versus like staying home? So, but I might still just play some limit there and I'll try to get my buddy Ryan, who's more well-versed in how to like get on the lists and stuff like that.
It is a nice room though.
Oh yeah. I always found it funny when it was like the poker room there is non-smoking, right? Like poker rooms have a tradition of being non-smoking, but people would just be like standing in the open air right next to it, having a smoke and like the sports book and stuff. So it's always kind of silly like that. But that's my angry takedown of playing cash at the Bellagio, something I will probably do on this upcoming trip. And now we'll talk a little bit about the World Series of Poker itself. We had a question come in on Twitter from our friend Richard Andrade. He says, the World Series of Poker, how does it work? I thought it was just one big tournament. Everyone plays in it and one person wins at the end. No. Also, what is a World Series of Poker bracelet? A trophy for winning the whole enchilada? And I think he's purposely playing into some of these misconceptions about the World Series of Poker. So I'm going to go through some of those here.
Well, he's not completely wrong about like how it started, which was very ridiculous, right? Like the first World Series of Poker was one tournament, right?
Well, it was. I think it was more like a cash game. Yeah,
it was a cash game. They just played for a while,
and then they
just
voted
decided
at the end. Yeah,
and they voted. They're like, who did really well?
Yeah, they voted at the end who played best. And so
it was like a beauty pageant. Like just had people holding up signs.
And then like those early tournaments, like I mean, I don't mean like to be disparaging, but when like people say, oh, they won like 8 bracelets, but it's all like the early ones, like you had like 4 guys in that tournament. Like what are we bragging about here?
So to answer his last question first, then what is a World Series of Poker bracelet? The World Series of Poker runs about these days 70 to 80 bracelet events each year. It's kind of like I'm explaining a bracelet by telling you what a bracelet event is, but that really is the main delineator between all the other kind of like side tournaments and daily tournaments and stuff that they run versus their numbered tournaments. Each tournament is given a number 1 through 78. And it's like number 76 is the main event. That is the one you see on ESPN and stuff like that. But in theory, it's just the $10,000 no limit hold'em championship. And it's in theory no different than any other of the 78 other events on the schedule or what have you. But those numbered events, if you do win the tournament, you get a gold bracelet that is emblazoned with, the World Series of Poker logo and other information, kind of like getting a Super Bowl rig or something like that. They work with a jeweler to make these bracelets that they hand out. And so, yeah, when I tell people I'm playing in the World Series of Poker, everyone's like, oh, will I see you on TV? And I was like, no, that's one of many, many events in the World Series of Poker. And it happens to be one that is too expensive for me and is a game I don't play. And so I've been doing all this talk about limit poker games because growing up in Minnesota, that was really all we had legal here. When I was 18, the max bet on any poker game was $60. And it's since been raised to $100, which allows you to play some like weird kind of spread limit games for people that know what that is. But because the max bet was $60, all the games that you would find would be limit. And so Minnesota was one of those limit hold'em meccas along with kind of California and Atlantic City. And I'm probably missing one there, but I can't come up with it.
So what event are you playing, Jack, when you're going out there? Because you said you're not playing the main event. So what one are you playing?
I'm playing a $1,500 limit hold'em tournament. And so most of the weirder variations of poker will have a $1,500 tournament and a $10,000 championship. And so even if you take something weird like no limit deuce to seven single draw, that will probably have like a $1,500 event in that form and a $10,000 championship in that form or something like that. Even the more niche forms of poker, you can still get about 2 tournaments out of, one of which will be like the quote unquote championship event. No limit hold'em, on the other hand, most of the tournaments, over half of them, I think, are no limit hold'em. And their $10,000 championship event is the one that's known as the main event. Right. But yeah, so we're playing a $1,500 limit hold'em tournament. And limit tournaments is just not really conducive to tournament poker because unlike in a cash game, you can't rebuy or add onto your chip stack whatsoever in this tournament. It's what's called a freeze out. And so all the stuff that goes into a no limit tournament about managing your stack relative to the blinds and going all in at the right times and putting your whole stack forward once it gets small enough, none of that exists in limit because you can only bet a limited amount at each juncture. And so it makes the tournament play very odd. But on the other hand, it's like, this is the World Series of Poker. Like, I'm going to go play the limit event that's there. Even if it plays weirder than a cash game, it's like, it's still just more fun because of the prestige of it in some sense.
How do you like register? Like if I wanted to find a game and I was like, hey, I want to go play. Like, how do I even register? Is it just like online? Do you have to like show up?
There are ways you can do it online. I haven't really looked into that much because the registration in person is so easy. I'll say one thing you do need is a Caesars player's card. This is at the Horseshoe and Paris Convention Centers in Vegas. And you need to have your Caesars card on you when you show up at the registration queue. The registration runs 24 hours a day. And so right before like a big no limit tournament, there'll be a big line to register. But you can register whenever you want. Like you could go in today and say, hey, I want to play the limit hold'em tournament. It's event, 19 or whatever it is. And they'll say, yes, okay, you want event 19. This is it. Please confirm. And you give them the cash. They give you a receipt and a seat number. And then you just show up to that table number in that ballroom in the convention center on that day. And so I'm probably, when I get in Saturday night, or the Sunday night before the tournament, just going to go register one of those nights so that I don't have to wait in line at any point during the day. One thing that's kind of rough for me is that normally they run 2 tournaments a day, an 11 a.m. Pacific and a 2 p.m. And the 11 a.m. one is going to be the big popular event of the day, which usually means it's a low buy-in, no limit hold'em tournament because everyone plays no limit and everyone can afford these $1,000 or $1,500 buy-ins, at least vis-a-vis the much larger tournaments they run sometimes. Which means for me, my weirdo tournament gets put at 2 p.m. Pacific, which for those of you on the East Coast means the tournament starts at 5 p.m. And that means that it goes late into the night because, like I said, you play 11 hours. You play 10 hours of poker with 4 15-minute breaks on that first day. And so it's like, it's just kind of a slog. And there's no dinner break. So we kind of have to make our own dinner break with our own in-house sandwich delivery. So
it's brutal. I'd say a good news for people that want to watch this year, I learned this recently, was that it's no longer going to be behind a well, it used to be it was on Poker Go for a couple of years, which you had to pay a subscription for. But now it's going to be on YouTube. So you can watch a number of events on the World Series of Poker YouTube channel. And I think the main event is going back to ESPN this year, which is kind of cool. I think it's the only tournament they're going to have on ESPN, but that kind of harkens back to like the Moneymaker 2003, 2004, like Lon McCarron, really fun time watching that on ESPN.
Yeah, and the 1 year, this was like 3 years ago now, I guess, but I got 13th place. If I had made it up to 8th place or better, I would have been on a live stream like you're talking about on Poker Go that would now be on YouTube because they do live stream the final tables of almost every event, even if it's an event that in theory no one cares about. So that's always kind of cool, is like you want to hope to make it far enough that you can like send your friends and relatives a link and be like, hey, you can watch me play kind of thing.
So does this mean that you're going to have to find some handy at the Shandy merch to wear if you get on one of these live streams?
I don't think it means that, but I do like the idea. I'm picturing like a big like campaign pin or button or something like that we make hastily. But
Yeah.
speaking of ideas from 2004, 2004, Tim Lawson called me and he asked, could a casino make poker its thing the way Circa went and made sports and sports betting its thing? And could they make that work? And what I told him was no. But
and then you hung up the phone.
How miserable do you want your customers to be? Like, you just want the most miserable people.
It's a poker-themed casino, and the dealers just are all salty at you or whatever. The dealers act to you the way poker players act to you or something like that, right? They're dealer-tainers.
Dick's Last Resort, but
yes.
It's just poker.
No, but so I was wondering, like, hey, imagine poker was still super popular like it was in like 2004, 2005 or something like that. What would come of a poker-themed casino? Like, what could you do with that idea?
The first thing that came to mind was Poker Palace, and look where's that at?
Palace is just, that was an inaptly named hole in the wall.
I don't think they could do it mainly because poker is not going to make them any money.
But you could say that about the sports though, right?
But I think you can do volume with sports, right? Like when it comes to poker, like you're limited by space, by the number of people at a table. You need exactly one dealer.
We need a poker pool where you pay to get a poker day bed at the table. You sell a big comfy chair. I don't know. Like we have to Circa-ify the poker room somehow.
Yeah, James is right, though. The manpower to do poker constantly with so many dealers at once to fulfill that is, I mean, but pokers are degens too. Like they will leave the poker room and then go waste their money in other places at the casino. Like we know that's true, but you're right. Like the cost of staffing a poker room. And I know you brought up like, poker's heyday. It's obviously not as popular anymore. That could be an advantage for certain places, though, too, because so many poker rooms are closing that there are certain spots on the Strip, Jack, you know this, where like the rooms are bustling all the time. Like Aria's room is busy all the time. So if you have it is
just a madhouse during the World Series of Poker.
I'm sure, yeah.
Even if you don't want to venture into I actually recommend to anyone if you haven't seen the World Series of Poker, go to the Paris Convention Center, on that little walkway between Paris and Horseshoe, and just go find the biggest ball. They're all open. You can just walk into any of these rooms. They're completely open to the public. It's like, it sounds like a rain stick is being turned over, like you had as a kid, with everyone shuffling their chips all at once when you just walk into it. It is an amazing experience to go see the World Series of Poker. And if you don't see that, just go see one of these poker rooms like Aria, Bellagio, Palazzo, Encore.
Yeah, my thinking is like, if you want to be poker forward now, it's just like having, with all of them kind of consolidating and being eliminated, like just having a really nice room is going to be make you stand out in that regard. Because there's places like Aria, like I said, that poker room's great. It's always bustling because I think it's really well run. It's professionally done. And then you've got places like Mandalay Bay where it's just out in the open and you can barely, it's not a room. It's just like we have some tables kind of by some stairs, and that's, people aren't going to be gravitating towards that.
I wonder if you could set up your poker room in a way that like on the outskirts was a bunch of video poker and then like a pit or two of like Ultimate Texas Hold'em, Caribbean Stud.
Oh, you have a poker themed area.
So everything in that area is poker. I don't know.
Now we're getting to the heart of it. And Pai Gow.
Oh yeah, some Pai Gow. I don't think Adam will play, but some people
It depends on the clientele.
All right. Well, thank you, Tim, for calling in and asking that. It is interesting to think about, even if it, in some sense, the ship has already sailed on that idea.
Yeah. And Jack, since you're not on Twitter, you don't know this, but Tim tweeted to me and said, I'm going to call you guys until one of you picks up, and I'm going to ask a question. And then I never got that phone call. So you're the one that definitely picked up.
Oh, good.
Well, yeah, thank everyone for the questions on that. I do like that at least one of us is involved in the World Series of Poker. It's been a bucket list item of mine, so I'm hoping to maybe get out there next year.
You got to come to the Vidara Invitational.
Yeah, I mean that's really what it is at this point. Do we have? Is there Is there a bracelet for that? Because that's like the original World Series of
we
poker.
all vote at the end.
Nice.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it should be who did the worst, and they get to wear like a dunce cap or something. Second best. Yeah, exactly. So thank you to that. I also want to thank people who left reviews recently. I've seen more reviews come in through iTunes. That's the one thing I check. I don't listen to the show. But I didn't want to shout out a recent review, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. I just like the title of it. And it says, "There is no reason for me to like this." And I just love that. Like it didn't matter what was going to be said after that. They left some very nice things, but I just like that kind of hook. So I appreciate that. We've had some very positive, nice, generous feedback. Speaking of generosity, we do have a new Patreon member, John B. Thank you for joining the Handies. Is that what we're calling them now?
Sure.
Yes. They have to have some sort of they've got like the Swifties. Is that Taylor Swift's?
Mm-hmm.
That's what they call them?
Just made that up. Yeah.
Okay. Well, ours are now officially the Handies. So John B,
Perfect.
welcome. Yeah. You're now an official
Podcast
handy.
favorite John B, as he is often
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Again, thank you all so much for listening. This has been episode 25, hour 2. We've done this for over 50 hours now, this podcast.
Jeez.
Quite a milestone. Thank you so much for listening. This has been Handy at the Shandy, a Las Vegas podcast. I'm Adam the Fraud, joined by Table James Games and Boring Jack. We'll talk to you next time.
Take care.
Bye.